Mayor Martini, Council Members Ratty, Lawson, Smith,
Here.
Ivy, Schmidt, absent, City Attorney Adams, City Manager Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum, thank you.
Okay, if you'd all please stand for invocation speaker, Pastor Barbara West from the Sparks Church of the Nazarene. Welcome, Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Would you all bow your heads with me in prayer? Oh, Heavenly Father, we just invite you into this place and thank you that we have the opportunity to join together in this fine council. And Lord, we do ask you to give wisdom to our mayor and to the city council members that they would know how to vote on each and every item that comes up on the agenda today. We thank you for our city and for the progress that's being made here in our city of Sparks, and ask you to protect, direct, and provide for each and everyone in this community. Thank you again, Lord, for Mayor Gino and for this fine council, and we pray today you would be with them as they join together to make decisions on our behalf. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for those kind words. If you'd remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Driscoll, would you lead us, please?
Please join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next is public comment. Anyone want to speak under public comment? I have no speaker cards. Okay, let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Consideration of taking anything out of order or sequence. Anyone want to move anything up or back or looking for a motion? Mr. Smith.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Ratty to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further questions? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Next is approval of the minutes. Consideration and possible approval of the minutes of the regular Sparks City Council meeting of January 12, 2015, and the concurrent meeting with the Reno City Council, Washoe County Commission, and Washoe County School Board of Trustees on January 12, 2015. Any omissions or corrections and deletions? If not, looking for a motion. Ms. Bybee.
I move to approve the minutes of the Sparks City Council meeting of January 12, 2015, and the concurrent meeting with the Reno City Council, Washoe County Commission, and Washoe County School District Board of Trustees on January 12, 2015.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bybee, second by Mr. Smith to approve the minutes of the 12th for the City Council and the 12th for the concurrent meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Okay, we have consent items. Anybody want to pull a consent item? 8.1 through 8.5. If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
I move to approve consent items 8.1 through 8.5.
Do I have a second? Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve the consent items as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Moving on to general business, presentation, discussion, and potential approval of the top themes that resulted from the Smarter Region Community Engagement process to determine a new regional economic development brand vision. Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Steve Driscoll, City Manager, for the record. If it serves the pleasure of the council, I'd like to do items 9.1 and 9.2 together, as they are related. 9.1 specifically, as you know, we've gone through a process over the last year or so in partnership with the City of Reno and other local government agencies. It started out with the IBM Smarter Cities research that was done by that consortium, and this council, as well as other members, has supported the functions that really took us from smarter cities to smarter regions. And before you, there has been some activity supporting the smarter regions, doing the One Voice through EDON and so forth. Later last year, there was a survey process that took a look at visioning for the Smarter Regions process. A lot of folks were reached out to, both private, public, members of this board were interviewed in their capacities, and that information was put together in a white paper which I attached to this staff report. What the staff report is contemplating to do is to have an acknowledgement by this council to work on, accept the visioning report that's attached, and then also in item 9.2 is to assign one of your members to a subcommittee that would take basically the findings of the white paper that are attached, and in 1 to 3 meetings, take a hard look at visioning for Smarter Regions and where it's going in helping us do the things that we want to do, primarily in economic development and support of reaching out and making this area one that companies would like to come to and places that people would like to live, which is very consistent with your vision of being the city of choice. And so with that, I think I do have some folks from Reno that have a lot more detail if we want to get into some detail on any of these issues. But mainly today, we're looking for support of the visioning work that was done in that paper, and then in item 9.2, having one of your members sit on the subcommittee. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Driscoll?
Steve,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Me? I forgot my question.
Did they?
3 meetings, is it monthly, one a month for 3 months?
I think it'll be up to the subcommittee to decide. They're just thinking that in order to do the visioning and to put some direction on it from a policy standpoint, that 1 to 3 meetings should be more than enough, and that they would meet at a frequency that the subcommittee would design for themselves. I certainly would expect they would meet at least once a month, or depending on the membership, because it's a diverse membership from all of the local governments and quasis, that with those members, they'll make that determination themselves.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to throw my hat
Go ahead.
in the ring for that. Since I've been working on this with EDON for
Yeah.
the past couple of years. And we're
Yeah,
Maureen.
That was going to be my suggestion, is because it's heavily involved with economic development towards that realm, that Mr. Lawson be the one that we appoint, because he's deeply involved in that, if no one has a problem. But let's do 9.1 first. Let's approve 9.1, and then we'll go to 9.2. So if I could get a motion on 9.1, Ms. Ratty?
Motion to accept the report on item 9.1.
Mr. Smith?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Ratty, second by Mr. Smith to approve item 9.1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Now, 9.2. Again, I agree with that. To my way of thinking, that's the right thing to do for us, I believe. So, discussion, motion. Mr. Smith.
Move to appoint Councilman Lawson to the committee.
Ms. Bybee.
I had a question. Do you need an alternate too, or because it's just a few meetings, do you just need one person?
Alternate would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, I move to appoint Ed Lawson as the member, and as the alternate would be Charlene Bybee. Councilwoman Bybee.
Ms. Ratty.
I'll second that motion and say that I'm also enthusiastic about this project, would love to be involved, but really I'm not in a place to do it right now, so I'm thrilled with the nominations. But please, if there's anything I can do to be helpful, let me know.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Ratty, to approve Ed Lawson, and Ms. Bybee is an alternate. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously.
And thank you, and I'd also like to just thank Maureen and her team. They're doing a lot of the legwork on this and making it easier for us to participate. So it's one of the good things about the partnership we have with this particular project. And so we'll continue to use and abuse her and her talents as we go through, and just appreciate her being here. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it, Maureen. Okay, moving on to 9.3, discussion and possible action on resolution number 3271, supporting the transfer of up to 40 acres of federal lands currently administered under the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, to the City of Sparks for the purpose of a public cemetery and possible other compatible public uses. Mr. Mayberry.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Manager Driscoll, Mr. Adams. I'm Adam Mayberry for the record. The item for you is a resolution, probably will be the shortest resolution that will come before this body for consideration. It merely allows this council to get behind and endorse a land transfer, a BLM transfer, to the City of Sparks for the purposes of a cemetery or possible other recreational uses such as open space. Just to give you a little history on this, this is something that Councilman Smith has largely spearheaded. Some of his constituents have expressed a desire at some point to be laid to rest in the city, in the longtime City of Sparks. So this would provide an avenue to create a cemetery in the City of Sparks. There's currently two tracks. One is at the United States Senate. Senator Heller and Senator Reed are moving forward on a Washoe County lands bill, which is now part of the sage grouse bill, which ultimately provides protection to, would prevent protection to the sage grouse. But that Washoe County lands bill will be introduced later this year. And there's some line items in there that identify the parcel in your staff report, the area as a potential cemetery location for the city. Then the other track is through the United States House of Representatives. Congressman Amodei has indicated that he would be happy to sponsor a stand-alone bill on behalf of the city. And so this resolution would really be one of the tools that Representative Amodei needs to see that happens. There's no financial commitment at this time to this. At some point there could be, but Congressman Amodei essentially needs an endorsement from this body that in fact you do support a federal lands transfer to the City of Sparks for the purpose of a cemetery or other recreational type open spaces. So that is kind of a high-level summary. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions for Adam. Ms. Bybee.
In the report, it said that this could be possibly a 10-year process. Is that to acquire the land and to actually see a cemetery there is a 10-year process?
Well, not necessarily. It's really the federal process, as you know, is a very lengthy bureaucratic process. And so this could take 2 years or it could take 10 years. So that's why we were very careful not to put a definitive timeline on there. Talking with our federal lobbyists, the expectation is that this would ultimately take a while. And at some point, should the BLM agree to transfer land to the city for a purpose of a cemetery, we would come back to the council, and the next step would be possibly to incur some administrative cost or whatnot. So does that answer your question?
It does. Is there anything that, say, residents, I know Councilman Smith had people in particular, and I've had a few people talk to me about cemetery in Sparks. Would it help if constituents of congressional and Senate delegates, would they contact them and support it? I mean, would that help put a little pressure or help move things along, maybe, if they had input from residents in Sparks, that this is something that they want?
Sure. It certainly wouldn't hurt. It certainly wouldn't hurt to reach out to the congressional delegation or certainly to the city via me, and I can contact the congressional delegation. So appreciate the question. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be 10 years if they put it on the fast track.
Yeah. I know.
So, any other questions?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
We've been working on, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been working on this for several years now, so we're already a quarter way into that 10-year period. It's going to be, we'll probably all be dead before it's ever built, but we have to start somewhere. And the senators and Congress people, their officers are behind this 100%. They're just, it takes time. BLM has a lot of land they want to get rid of. They just don't want to get rid of it. So we're working on it. Neil's been a big help on this, too, so thank you.
Yeah, lest we forget, our regional park took a few years, like 15 to get done, and there's another one up on the other side of Queen Way that took a few years to get done, too. So, any other questions on this particular item before Mr. Smith dies?
Yeah, we were going to let him make the motion.
Okay, I'll try. Go ahead, make it.
Make a motion, Mr.
Go ahead, Mr. Lawson.
I move to endorse resolution number 3271 and support the conveyance of up to 40 acres of the BLM lands to the city of Sparks for the development of a local public cemetery. That may also include public recreation uses as appropriate.
Do you have a second, Ms. Bybee?
Second the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Lawson, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve 9.3. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously, and thanks, Mr. Smith, for bringing this forward. This is good for something for the parks, really.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it. 9.4, consideration and possible approval of bid number 1415-010 for an initial one-year contract with the possibility of 4 one-year extensions to Thatcher Company of Nevada, Inc. to supply sulfuric acid to the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility at the cost of $242 per solution ton. Mr., I can't remember your name, I'm sorry. Saxberg, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. For the record, my name is Todd Saxberg, Operations Manager, Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. Today, we bring before the council a request to enter into a contract with Thatcher Company of Nevada for delivery of sulfuric acid to Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. We use sulfuric acid in our final process to lower the pH, and that allows the bleach that we use as a disinfecting agent to be more effective and allows us to more consistently and reliably make our reuse permit parameters. With that, I'll take any questions the council may have on this.
Questions? Okay, if not, looking for, a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I move to approve the contract with Thatcher Company of Nevada, Inc. to supply sulfuric acid to the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility at a cost of $242 per solution ton.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 9.4. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. Sorry about that. Okay, let's move on to 9.5, consideration, discussion, and possible approval of a bargaining agreement between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association lieutenants for the period of July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015.
Good afternoon. Chris Severson, Administrative Services Director. You have before you the bargaining agreement between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association lieutenants. This is a one-year bargaining agreement that would be effective July 1st, 2015 through June 30th of July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2015.
That's it?
That's it.
Questions? Looking for a motion. Ms. Ratty.
I move to approve the bargaining agreement AC 5120 between the City of Sparks and the Sparks Police Protective Association lieutenants for the period of July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2015.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve agenda item 9.5. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to 9.6 is a first reading.
This is the first reading of Bill Number 2690, amending Ordinance 2284 to approve a second amendment, Victorian Square Development Plan, to the Sparks Town Center 2000 amended redevelopment plan and providing for other matters properly relating thereto.
This is the first reading of Bill Number 2690. The public hearing and second reading of this bill will be conducted at the regular City Council meeting on Monday, February 9th, 2015. 10.1, second reading, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on Bill Number 2688, an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Sparks Municipal Code by adding and adopting a civil citation and administrative code enforcement process and providing for other matters properly related thereto. Mr. Ornelas.
Mayor Martini, members of the City Council, Armando Ornelas, City Planner. As you are aware, the City Council and staff have been working on amendments to the Sparks Municipal Code to enhance the code enforcement process since November 2013, when Council directed staff at a workshop to do two things. One was to develop a set of property conservation amendments to the code to address some of the issues that, up to this point we've had trouble mitigating because the code didn't adequately address them. And those are the amendments that the Council approved in December of 14, just last month. And then the second thing that the City Council directed staff to do was to bring forward proposed changes to the municipal code to grant code enforcement officers the ability to issue civil citations. And so these code changes are a new section to Title II. And while they've been drafted primarily with the intent of providing code enforcement officers this administrative citation ability, it applies generally to other positions of the city that have a regulatory role, like the building official and police officers, city manager, et cetera. So I guess what I want to emphasize today is that really what these amendments are intended to do, or these powers to issue citations, they're intended to come into play to be utilized only after the procedures that code enforcement officers use now have been exhausted, if you will. They're not intended as a first resort, but rather as a resort, something to resort to when we're not able to get compliance by doing what we normally do. And I think with regard to that, there's a lot of process, a lot of due process built into the proposed ordinance. The city must provide the property owner written notice for each step or action that's contemplated, and that includes, the notice of violation, recordation of a notice of violation, or if the staff is intending to issue a fine or citation, and then also in the abatement or lien steps. So, written notice to the property owner at each of those steps. At each of those steps, the property owner has a right to request an administrative hearing. We've talked about this before. We intend to hire a hearing officer on contract that would be able to hear these appeals, if you will. When a step is taken, for example, we issue a notice of violation, the letter would be sent to the property owner, and they would have 10 days to request that hearing before the hearing officer. They might also choose to that, frankly, if they simply disagree with us. If the code enforcement officer says, these conditions that are violations exist on your property, the property owner could choose to say, I disagree, and, I want the hearing officer to make the determination as to whether or not, they believe that there's a violation on the property. There are procedures in here for reversing, for example, the recordation of a notice. And so, if a notice is recorded and the property owner, corrects the violation, the city is obligated to basically record something so that, it's clear that, if anyone's doing a title search, for example, that violation no longer exists. And then finally, any administrative order that the hearing officer issues can be appealed to the municipal court. So, these procedures are intended to be used in lieu of the criminal citation process. And I think the staff report goes into a fair amount of detail in terms of the sections of the ordinance, and so I'm not going to go into further detail about those procedures unless you want me to, but that in a nutshell is what this ordinance is about. And so if you have any questions, I would be glad to address them. I have two more things. One is Joe Rodriguez, who is our Senior Code Enforcement Officer, is available to answer questions as well. And then Doug Thornley with the City Attorney's Office, who actually drafted the ordinance, is here to answer your questions. And then finally, there is a proposed change. It's pretty minor. It's on page 3, I believe, that's been provided to you. This was requested by Jim Nadeau on behalf of the Realtors Association, and it is a change to Section 2.27.080, which is entitled authority to inspect, and you can see the words that have been struck there. In our view, their request was to make this change in order to change the tone of this paragraph, but everything that's otherwise contemplated in that paragraph is still there. It's just, again, the tone is intended to be different at their request. So with that, again, the three of us are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions, Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rodriguez, I have a question for you, or a couple of questions. Does the new ordinance that we're putting in effect today, does that give you the latitude to apply the new ordinance to the people that are out there?
Yes, it does.
Are you going to be able to use your judgment on some of the, sometimes the big worry was somebody's going to complain and it's really not a complaint and you can go out and make that judgment yourself?
Yes, it will give me the ability to use my own judgment on
So
that.
you're in favor of this ordinance change?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Ms. Bybee?
Thank you, Mayor. Question, I know that this is all, the new code is complaint-based, so you're not driving around looking for houses that are in violation. It's when you receive a complaint from a resident. My question is, especially due to the severity that could become if they don't comply, is the name of the people, of the neighbor or person who reported the violation, is that going to be released to the person who's in violation?
No, it is not. It's an active case, and they would have to wait until the case was closed, or they would have to contact the attorney's office to be able to request that name.
Because I'm concerned about retaliation, obviously, especially if it's your neighbor. So I just wondered if we were protecting the neighbors who are reporting something. I would like to see, a whole other issue, if the neighbors know who reported them, and then that creates another problem.
The assistant, Doug Thornley basically said that if it's a criminal citation that's being pursued, a criminal case that's being pursued, that document would be protected. Otherwise, it's a public document, but what I would point out to you is that most complaints that we get are anonymous, and so typically they come in and there's no real record of it. Even with phone calls or emails, a lot of times it's not something that, is available to the public.
So if I've had most of my calls are code enforcement issues right now. If I have a resident who calls with an issue, if they call to get your judgment on it or to report something, they can remain anonymous if they choose to.
Yes, they can.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Reddy?
So I just want to clarify something to make sure that I understand, following up on what Ms. Bybee said. So I believe the ordinance is neutral whether or not it's complaint-based or proactive code enforcement based on seeing a problem. Our current process is that our resources allow us to pretty much be complaint-based.
Correct.
But if you see a blatant code violation, you don't have to wait for a complaint to pursue that.
If it's a life and safety issue, no.
Even if it's not a life and safety issue, the ordinance doesn't say you have to wait for a complaint, does it?
No, it does not.
It's just our current
Policy.
or current, actually not policy, because it didn't come from here, it's our current procedure.
Procedure at this
Correct.
point.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, but as far as the ordinances are concerned, they're neutral as to a code violation is a code violation is a code violation, regardless of the source of that information to the city.
Correct.
Right. But our current procedure is we're acting on complaints.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action. Questions? Ms. Ratty?
Not a question, I was going to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Except for that I'm on the, no, I'm on the right thing. No, I'm not, just a second. There we go. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thank you to staff, both the community services staff, particularly Mr. Rodriguez for all of his time and effort, and Mr. Ornelas for all of his time and effort, and the city attorney's office. We've been working on this for quite some time. There have been lots of calls from the public throughout the recession to do more in terms of neighborhood preservation, and I think that we struck a really good balance between not being a police state, but doing some things that will help improve the quality of neighborhoods. So I'm really grateful that this amount of time and energy went into it, and wanted to say thank you to the staff. So with that said, I move to approve Bill number 2688 as submitted by staff.
Mr. Smith?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Ratty, seconded by Mr. Smith. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on, 11.1, second reading, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on Bill number 2689, Regional Road Impact Fees and Ordinance amending Chapter 12 of the Sparks Municipal Code to reflect the changes to the Regional Road Impact Fee General Administration Manual, Capital Improvements Plan, and impact fees as approved by the Regional Transportation Commission on September 19th, 2014. Mr. Martini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Martini, Assistant Community Services Director, here before you for your consideration and possible approval, an amendment to Title 12 of our code, which is the section of our code that deals with the regional road impact fees. This has been a big chapter of my life for the last 4 years. Julie Masterpool with the RTC, RIF administrators here as well. We've been working on this for a while. It is an overhaul of the regional road impact fee system. The amendments before you are a culmination of a lot of work by the RTC RIF-TAC, which is comprised of members, staff members from each of the jurisdictions, as well as the development community. Julie was here in November and gave the council an overview of those changes. In December, we took the land use assumptions and capital improvement plans included in this program to our Capital Improvements Advisory Committee, which is our planning commission. They voted unanimously to recommend approval to this body. That is attached to your staff report. The changes to Title 12 occur in 5 areas. The first being 12.4403. With approval of this bill, you will adopt the 5th edition of the General Administrative Manual. It is the rules of the program, if you will. The changes include changes to the definition of a regional road. It's gone from basically 5,000 average daily trips per day to about 14,000. Defines the north and south benefit or service areas. If you will recall in Julie's presentation, our previous program had 3 benefit districts, the northeast, the northwest, and the south. That's been now changed to service areas. It modifies the old impact fee credit system and creates a new system called the offset system. We had to do something so that the old credit system still existed and could be used, as well as creating a new system for basically, we're calling them offsets that will be on a developer-sponsored construction. That is the way they'll have offsets or credits. And then we also, for years, have been trying to simplify the system somewhat. So the land use categories used in the impact fee calculations have been simplified. The 5th edition of the General Administrative Manual was attached to your staff report for review as Exhibit 1. We will also be amending Section 12.44040, adoption of the Regional Road Impact Fee System Capital Improvement Plan. There are now capital improvements plan for the north and the south benefit districts. Those were attached to your staff report as Exhibit 3. Section 12.44050 defines the service areas that I talked about previously. It is the actual legal descriptions. Section 12.44060 will be amended, titled Impact Fees, and that includes the new impact fee schedule that is attached to your staff report, as well as a comparison of the old system with the new. You'll notice that the fees in general went down. And then finally, Section 12.44.100, service area expenditures of fees. If the council will recall, under the old system, fees collected within, in our case, the Northeast Benefit District had to stay in the Northeast Benefit District. This language is similar. They will stay in the North service area now. Before I close and open it for questions, I would like to acknowledge Julie Masterpool in front of the council today. If you can imagine steering 3 jurisdictions, her own board, the development community, as well as all of us RIF administrators, it was a long, arduous process, and she has my admiration and thanks. She did a lot of hard work to keep us all on schedule. With that, I'll open it for questions if you have any. Julie's here. If the questions get really hard, I'll turn it over to her.
Questions? Ms. Bybee?
I'm looking at your chart on the current and proposed fees.
Yes.
Can you explain on the, so the percentage of change on each of these is actually the cost, say, for single unit or single unit dwellings is minus 14%, so it's 14% lower than it was in the past. Am I reading that correctly?
That is correct. That would be for the North Benefit District, which is predominantly the city of Sparks. We do have a little bit in the south, so south of I-80, and that fee will go down in the South Benefit District by 4%. So
Okay.
in the north, 14, in the south, 4.
Okay, but I was curious because in going through this whole chart, everything was down except schools, and the
Yes.
schools were up. Can you explain why?
Now, if you will recall, schools, the Washoe County School District is not subject to these. These are private schools. So we took a real hard look at, we have had several, I think I saw Christopher here. Excel Christian is a decent example. We don't know where they're going to always occur. They're not, the school district will put them in neighborhoods as new neighborhoods build. One thing we have found with private schools is pretty much everyone gets driven. So we found that the amount of traffic generated by the schools is higher than we thought under the old program. So that fee went up.
And the Washoe County School District does not pay because?
NRS, they're immune.
So even though they've got a lot of traffic on the road, as well as buses, using roads and to a much higher degree than private schools would, it's an NRS that they're not charged then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to acknowledge Julie too, and you. You guys have worked your butts off, and so has everybody else at RTC. It's been a long time coming, and I know that the different versions we came out with and everything else, so you did a great job. Congratulations.
Anyone else? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'll open it to the public. Anyone want to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for action or questions. Mr. Smith?
I move to approve Bill number 2689 as submitted by staff.
Ms. Bybee?
Second the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve 11.1, Bill number 2689. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, John.
Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it. Closed door, no, Steve?
No, sir.
Okay, comments from the public. Anyone in the public want to speak under public comment? Seeing none, comments from the council or city manager. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have an announcement. The following committee appointments are available. The Western Nevada Development District, 1 member for a 2-year term. This applicant should be a private citizen involved in business industry, professions, or education. The second is for the Airport Noise Advisory Committee, 2 members for 2-year terms. Persons interested in serving on this committee should complete a community service application available from the city clerk's office. You may also apply online at the city's website, www.cityofsparks.us. Click on City Services on the webpage, then click on Volunteering, Get Involved, and then you would click on Fill Out a City of Sparks volunteer application. Applications will be accepted for these vacancies until the close of business on January 27th, 2015.
That's it? Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further business, we are adjourned.
So I'd like to call to order the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of January 26, 2015, with a roll call.
Chairperson Ratty?
Here.
Agency members Lawson? Here. Smith?
Here.
Martini?
Here.
Bybee? Here. Schmidt, absent. Agency Attorney Adams. Here. Chief Administrative Officer Driscoll.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. So item number 3, do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Lawson, second by, oh, wait a minute. I've got a motion by Agency Member Lawson, seconded by Agency Member Martini. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item number 5, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
So I've got a motion by Agency Member Martini, seconded by Agency Member Smith. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, report of claims and bills approved for payment November 20th through January 7th.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion for approval by Agency Member Smith, seconded by Agency Member Lawson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, PCN 15001, consideration and possible approval of a second amendment to the Victorian Square redevelopment plan to the Sparks Town Center 2000 amended redevelopment plan for possible action. Mr. Ornelas.
Chairwoman Ratty, members of the agency board, I'm Armando Ornelas, city planner. The redevelopment plan for Town Center redevelopment area, or redevelopment area 1 as it's also known, was amended in 2000, and then in 2005 we did a series or a set of amendments that's referred to as the first amendment to the 2000 redevelopment plan, and it was specific to Victorian Square and specifically 8 blocks of Victorian Square. And the full text, I think, has been provided as part of your packet of that first amendment from 2005. And what it did was modified the 2000 redevelopment plan to shift away from a focus on large-scale retail development for Victorian Square to a mixed-use project. This second amendment to that plan, the 2000 plan, really focuses again on these same 8 blocks. And it does not, however, shift the focus away from a phased mixed-use project. It maintains that focus on mixed use and phasing. So what do the changes really comprise of? One is development plan changes, and that's the document here. Teresa, can you bring this up on the screen? Would, please. And so, in a sense, this is an update of that physical plan that was in the 2005 amendments. And really what we're doing here is adding some flexibility in terms of the uses. For example, on parcels 21 through 24, which are colored in orange on that slide. Again, this should be in your packet. The city at that time was contemplating adding a city hall facility, and so the plan was, fairly specific in that regard. And with this proposed amendment, we're saying that it could be multifamily residential, office, and/or retail uses. With regard to parcel 9 on the eastern side of the site, on the north side of the alley there, parcel 9 at the time, we were working with Trammell Crow, or in anticipation of working with Trammell Crow, and that was contemplated as multifamily housing. Under this plan, it could be multifamily residential, office, and/or retail uses. And as you know, we're in an exclusive negotiation agreement with Silverwing Development, and one of the proposed uses, the primary proposed use at this time for that site is as for corporate office. So not a lot of changes in terms of overall, and I would say that in particular those 2 parcels are the ones where we're looking for some additional flexibility. The other set of changes really have to do with the implementation strategy, and per the redevelopment statute, which is NRS 279, we have to have some specificity in terms of the implementation strategy. And frankly, the world has changed in the last 10 years since the recession. For one thing, the agencies and the city's financing capacity is somewhat reduced relative to then. We are 10 years deeper into the life of this redevelopment district, and at this point, we only have about 8 years left as the life of this redevelopment district expires in 2023. And so the strategy necessarily needs to change. Back in the early 2000s, we were contemplating that the redevelopment agency would take a very active role and, in fact, would continue to acquire property it didn't own in the Victorian Square area and would, take the lead in selecting a master developer for, all of Victorian Square or in phases for all of Victorian Square. And so one of the changes that is reflected in this version of the plan, excuse me, is that we're essentially saying, we will select a developer for the property that we own, but with regard to those parcels that we don't own, it's a more realistic approach where we're going to be saying, we're taking the tack in the plan that we will work with the property owners. So, for example, several of those parcels along the plaza, on either side of the plaza, currently 12, 10, and 28, are owned by Wolfhound Holdings, which also owns the Nugget. And so, pardon me, rather than say in the plan that we would acquire those properties and look for a developer for them, the goal now is to work with those property owners and help them facilitate their redevelopment of the property when they're ready to do so. On the east side, parcels 30 through 34. Those are owned by multiple parties, and, thank you.
He beat you to it.
Those parcels on the east side there are owned by multiple parties, and so we anticipate really that as, assuming that Phase 1, which is really the parcels on the east side that Silver Wing is pursuing development of, assuming that project is successful and goes forward, then, that will create interest and impetus for those other property owners to move forward on a more organic basis. So those are the sorts of changes from the implementation side of things that are proposed in this version of the plan. So when a redevelopment agency wants to amend its redevelopment plan, NRS 279-608 basically spells out what we need to do. And when there's going to be a material deviation from the previous plan, basically it is the redevelopment agency's charge to determine whether they in fact want to make these amendments to the redevelopment plan. And if so, then you recommend the changes to the City Council. And then the City Council adopts the changes by ordinance. And, we've been trying to keep this moving as steadily as possible. And so the first reading was on the City Council's agenda today. And then the second reading would be on the agenda for February 9th. We did send notice, written notice to property owners in the area between 15th Street on the west, Prado Way on the north, Pyramid Way on the east, and Victorian Avenue on the south. So we took in that large area and noticed everyone individually, and we published notice in the Gazette Journal on January 13th. So those are the steps and the process for amending the plan. And if you have any questions, I would be do my best to address them.
Okay. Any questions? Nothing? Okay. Do we have any public comment cards? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Please, we'll start with this gentleman, and then if you would check in with the clerk before you leave, and please fill out a public comment card. Anybody else that'd like to comment, if you would go ahead and go grab a public comment card from the clerk and fill it out, that would be great. And please state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Tom Fountain, and I own Fountain Realty, which I think is Lot 16, and I received this notice. I'm unclear just exactly what's planned for 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. It indicates here that it doesn't apply, but I was just wanting a little more clarification as to what the redevelopment plan is for that corner, since I have occupied an office and remodeled there for the last 11 years.
Great, thank you. Mr. Ornelas, would you like to answer that question?
Chairman Reddy, Armando Ornelas, City Planner. As you may notice, the parcels that have existing structures on them we didn't choose to try to change the designation on these parcels. Certainly, we recall from our discussions back in the early 2000s with Mr. Fountain that he had made a sizable investment in that building for his own offices and wasn't interested in either selling or doing anything other than what he had in there. And so for the purposes of this plan, it doesn't change anything about his parcel.
And it would be fair to say that the strategy may have changed slightly in that we're willing to work with his neighbors for any development plans that they bring forward, but we will not be aggressively looking for a developer for any empty lots near you. Is that? Occupied lots. Well, even empty lots, whoever the owner is, we would be looking for them to come forward with their plans and we would work with them, as opposed to us coming with our plans and saying this is what we want to do on these lots.
That's correct. With regard to parcels 14 and 20, which are on the block that Mr. Fountain's property is on, those are owned by Wolfhound Holdings as well. And if Wolfhound wants to pursue redevelopment of those properties and wants to work with the redevelopment agency to do something, then we would start there and based on his interests and based on our interests, would determine whether there's any potential partnership.
Did that answer your question, sir?
Thank you.
Great. Mr. DeHeer?
Councilman Ratty and our city officials, thank you for thank you for what you're doing with this, because we think it's so important. My name's Christopher Dare, and I'm here representing 39 North downtown, and also just a citizen in Sparks. And I have to say that what I get to represent is a few different businesses. A lot of you guys kind of know that, but we just want to officially be on the record of saying thank you, that it's very supported by the businesses in that area, what you're doing. And as you move forward, we appreciate the communication that's happening, but we are excited and hope that we can get foot traffic and we can continue to look at having down in that area a focus as people come in, that it's a place that we can make sure continues to grow. We believe in downtown in Sparks. We have it, obviously, but it needs to continue to grow and stay safe and be what it needs to be. But thank you. We appreciate it and just want to officially put that on the record.
Great, thank you. I apologize for slaughtering your last name. I'm going to get it at one of these points. And then would you also do me a favor? I seem to have fallen off the email list for 39 North, and so I'm not knowing where your monthly meetings are. So would you do me that favor and see if I can't get back on that list?
Very cool. I just thought you got busy.
It did. Pushed me out for some reason.
Yes. Oh, very good.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else, public comment? Okay. Seeing none, council, I'll bring it back, or agency, I'll bring it back to you for discussion or action. Oh, I don't have a little thing.
Okay.
Mr.
I'll make a
Smith.
motion. I move to approve the Second Amendment to the Sparks Town Center 2000 amended redevelopment plan associated with PCN 15001 and recommended the city staff amend the redevelopment plan by ordinance.
Second.
You said city staff or city council.
Okay, city council. I'm corrected.
That too. Second.
So I have a motion by agency member Smith, seconded by agency member Martini. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for a lot of good work on that. And I know we've got multiple steps to go, but appreciate the extra effort. All right. So that's us for today. Do we have any comments from the public? Okay. Comments from the agency or chief administrative officer? All right. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second. Third.
Call it adjourned.
Fifth.
All right, I made it.